What was the defining factor that drew each of you to this project?
Money.
Every pleasure has a price.
Is that too fast?
No, that was perfect.
Oh,
That's so good.
This cast.
Oh.
I mean, just being able to work with these actors, these people. That to me, once the cast started becoming more real, to me that was one of the most attractive facets of what we're doing here.
I love the script. Chris Brancato and Michael Paynes both wrote a beautiful script for the pilot. I remember reading it and sometimes you think, oh, I hope this works out, but you don't care. This one, I was like, please let this work out. And I love the character of Burton Greenberg. And then finding out who was playing these guys made me just like, I was chomping at the bit.
I was doing Chris's show, Godfather of Harlem. Chris and Michael Paynes. Michael Paynes is a dear friend of mine for years. I was working with Guillermo Navarro on that show as well. And then they were cooking this show up, and so we started having a conversation about it. And I liked the team already. I hadn't seen anything. We saw a sketch of a pilot that I called Danny about, and I like Miami things. I'm from Miami. I like Miami-centric shows. I like the idea of this. I like the long-term idea of this, if this went on for multiple seasons with this world that we're talking about. And it just excited me. I've known Danny a long time. Get to work with Danny. We always wanted to do something. And here we are, So, it starts like that. And then it gets better. It starts like that, you're like, oh, now it's really starting to cook. It's starting to cook, and it's getting really, really good. So, it's like a soup.
It's a rich broth.
It's a rich broth.
It's a rich broth. Reading the script the first time, you get a sense of the multiple plates that are being spun. And Chris Brancato is a fantastic plate spinner. You have a family story, right? A father trying to protect his daughter, right? You have the story of two brothers, estranged brothers, right? One who chose one path and one who chose the diametrically opposed path, right? You also have the story of this hotel and this club, this hedonistic paradise that is led by the owner of the club, who is sort of like the ringmaster for the party.
That's right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that person's journey, Burton Greenberg's journey of hedonism, of self-reflection, of the me generation, provides a moment for our audience and our story to breathe and laugh, juxtaposed next to some awful and heinous violence. And I think on a social level, understanding that there's a tie between that violence and maintaining that hedonistic paradise, right? What is the cost of it? Every pleasure has a price, is what is said, to open up our show. It's our mantra, our slogan, as it were. When I read the script, it was functioning on so many different levels, and I found it hard to sort of put my thumb on whether I'd ever seen a show that was jumping back and forth between scenes that way. And frankly, I wondered whether it could work. I wasn't sure whether we would find the balance between, the family story, the violence and the crime story, along with the humor and the comedy and levity being sort of weaved in. And that challenge to me was fascinating and exciting.
At the end of episode 1, we see Roman Chucho and essentially secure his new relationship with Nestor as his right-hand man. How can we expect their relationship to evolve throughout the season based on that? Because the conflict between the two, Roman doesn't necessarily want to be his right-hand man, but because of the actions Nestor has put him in, he now has to be.
Well, I think what you're going to see, without saying too much, is that Roman and Nestor share, they are brothers, so they share DNA, but they share something. They share a particular dream that is very, very important to both of them. That will come into play. That begins to come into play later on in the season. Also, his daughter is very close to me, and it is the closest that I cannot have children. Nestor can't have children. I think that's sort of thrown in there early on. So I'm on my fourth wife, as you know. My wife in the show is my fourth wife. I'm trying to be like Elizabeth Taylor. By the end of the season, I wind up with 8 wives. No, so I can't. So his kid is very, very dear to me and very important, and I spoil her, and she begins to become another thing in the show as well, which you'll see. But yeah, we have common goals that will want to make him come this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's also a lot of loyalty is on the table. Mm-hmm. Not only his, Roman's loyalty to his daughter and to his girlfriend Marisol, but his loyalty to his brother over an agreement that he's made with the DEA, who's been manipulating him. I think the loyalty he has to his brother begins to bleed into this agreement that he has with Zulio, played by Michael Chiklis. And I think Roman actually rather enjoys trying to deceive the people who are trying to handle him.
For Burton, he adds a lot of comedic factors, especially early on in the season, but there are a lot of internal struggles that he's obviously fighting. The main factor of that is his family. How will we see him evolve with his family over the course of the season?
That Burton comes from a wealthy Republican Jewish family in Miami, and he's kind of the black sheep. And I wouldn't say I'm a black sheep in my family, but I can relate to Burton in that way because I come from a family of lawyers. My father's a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer. I decided to go into Hollywood, become an actor, and there's that feeling that you're taking the path less traveled, which is both incredibly risky and scary, but also is filled with that fun and excitement of not knowing where it's going. And that's very true for Burton. He was very close with his mother, and he was kind of a freak. He felt like he was a misfit as a kid, and he built this hotel as a home for misfits like him, for creative types to find their muse. And he sort of thinks of himself as the muse, and in episode 2 you'll see that he is the muse, apparently, of the song Super Freak. So, yeah, but in taking that path less traveled, there are a lot of risks and a lot of costs. And when he comes head to head with his sister and his family, we see what he has to do to keep the party going, and it's dark.
It's a great moment in the show, though. When that happens, that's a great moment.
There's a very fun scene.
That's an amazing moment
when he has to meet with his sister in a conference room to discuss
Yeah.
whether or not to decide whether or not to sign over his life's work, his hotel, to his sister, and it's I'll just say it's kind of trippy.
Are there any more other cameos that we can expect throughout the season like that?
The only two for famous cultural icons are in season 1, Hunter S. Thompson and Rick James in episode 2, and then for my character, my sister is the figure that comes in and really spins my character into a whole new direction.
Okay.
Well, there is one tiny one that to me is significant because he was a drummer for Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Danny
John
says,
Bonham.
Mr. Bonham.
Yeah.
You're having it's John Bonham.
Yeah, there are a few of those sprinkled in throughout the end, all the way to the end of the season, of sort of like cameos, but not really characters that we really invest in the way we do with Hunter S. Thompson
and Rick James.
Yeah.
But we do mention some too, like in a conversation with Roman and Burton and Rick James, we mentioned that Keith Richards came up with the guitar solo for Beast of Burden, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's right.
At the urinal.
At the urinal.
In
at
the beauty
museum.
club,
That's
yeah.
right.
Were there any challenges bringing these characters to life?
You know, to be able to take a period piece, 1978, to then on top of that, for myself, play somebody who actually existed. Roman Conte was the father of Maurice Conte, fellow actor.
Who's
and
here?
a producer on the show. That was my first instinct was, let me find out who this man was before I start to embellish and dig as to what I would like to do with that character. Let me first find out who he was and use that as a foundation, not only out of respect to Maurice and his family, but also I feel like pouring a very solid and firm foundation in reality allows you then to play all different kinds of notes above that. So that was a challenge going in, and so you know, little things like I was born in the 70s in Miami, and my grandfather wore a certain kind of cologne, and you know, that transports me back to my childhood, back to that time. Having a handkerchief constantly with me the way he did, had that cologne on there. In addition to that, I asked Maurice to share with me all of these things about his father. One of the things he did was that he pulled out his chain and he had a medallion that belonged to his father. His father wore his, you know, all of Maurice's life. He doesn't remember that when his father didn't wear it. And so I asked if we could take pictures of it, and we reproduced it. And I wore that medallion throughout all of shooting. So to have a representation, like literally right on my heart the entire time we shot, those were the little things that allowed me to really jump into the character, both sort of externally and also internally.
I just want to add to that there was a moment when we were at the Los Angeles Latino Film Festival recently, backstage, when Danny just said, I hope to Maurice, whose father was the character he's playing, I hope I've done him justice. And Maurice got emotional as he looked at Danny and said, you couldn't have brought him to life more than you have.
Out of all of the series that deal with drug trafficking, drug cartels, what to you makes Hotel Cocaine stand out and unique that will bring in viewers?
I mean, I want to just jump in and say that I think it was a very ambitious choice Chris Brancato made to not just focus, as shows like Narcos that he's written and Godfather of Harlem have done in the past, on the intrigue plot, the drama, the hardcore, cops and robbers aspect of this world, but to add in the pleasure, the fun of the Mutiny Club, and to have not only comedy in the form of my character, but also the incredible Mutiny girls and the dances and the life. You feel like you're at the Copacabana or Rick's Cafe in Casablanca, and trying to balance those two tones and going from the dark into the light and back to the darkness is, I find, so pleasing and so nice to have that balance.
I think all that, you have the family element, and then you have all that juxtaposed against the political background of Miami at that time and the Cuban American experience, which will come to play big time as the season goes on. So it's all taking you somewhere. It's just not. It appears in the beginning that it's one thing, it begins to turn on you. That's what I think.
It's like a clash between the American dream and the Cuban dream, going head to head over the course of this whole series.
I really want to add to what they're saying, but I agree with both of them. I think that there's something incredibly familiar about our storytelling, whether it's, Goodfellas or, Boardwalk Empire, somewhat Scarface. Like, there's elements of that I feel, I found familiar in our storytelling. What makes it different, and I think what makes it valuable in terms of telling this particular story, is exactly what these two gentlemen just talked about. It's the this party, this hedonistic adult paradise, and what it takes, the cost of maintaining that party is the blood that's running through Miami, to bring the substance that is fueling that party to the actual club. And oftentimes that part of the equation is forgotten. The blood that runs through Miami all the way down to Central and South America and through the Caribbean. In addition to that, having Spanish spoken in the middle of a sentence,
Right.
Yep.
having Spanglish be, I think, the main language of our show is something that either has been done very infrequently or not very well. It is the language of South Florida.
Right.
That's the way we speak to each other.
Yeah.
That's what I heard growing up in Miami, and thankfully Chris Brancato said, "Go for it."
Yeah.
You know, if there's something in there that you would say differently, say it that way. And so, you know, I feel like the audience, through the language, through the wardrobe, through, you know, the set design and the direction, will be transported to a place, although familiar, different.
Yeah, I had said to Chris early on. I said I don't want to talk like this, man. Hey, motherfucker, you know. He's like, no. He goes, we speak English, and then we speak Spanish perfectly, and he goes, I love that. Like that's like the thing. So I was like,
Although I kind of like when you speak like that.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's pretty
No,
good.
but I do it off camera.
Yeah.
I speak to them
He
like
speaks
that.
to
Hey,
them.
how you doing, man?
Yeah, he orders lunch like
so
that, which
good.
is like, yo, why you talking like
It's
that?
so I know, it's so weird.
Yeah, I want a cheeseburger.
They give me
Oh,
cheeseburger, man.
papita.
Let me get this thing, man.
And
Yeah.
it's soda.
Give me a
You don't
soda.
have to do that.
Well, I want a tota. Tota.
You gotta throw people off.
Yeah, you know, we got to keep them thinking.